Money, power, control. For centuries, banks have operated behind the scenes, shaping the rise and fall of empires, dictating who thrives and who struggles, and quietly molding the world we live in today. It's a story few are taught. We learn about kings, battles, and grand civilizations, but the architects of finance remain invisible. Yet their influence has always been greater than armies or monuments. Banks didn't just manage money, they created systems that made wealth central, scarcity real, and society dependent on their control. Long before Wall Street existed, early banking systems emerged in ancient Mesopotamia. Temples doubled as vaults. Grain became currency. Credit was extended to those in favor, withheld from those who resisted. And through this early system, a pattern emerged. Those who controlled the flow of money controlled everything else: land, trade, and even governance. As empires grew, Babylon, Rome, Egypt, the role of financial institutions evolved. Banks became more than storage places. They became power hubs. Loans determined who could build, who could conquer, and who could survive. Political influence followed the money. Wealth was no longer just about what you had. It was about access, timing, and leverage. Fast forward to the Renaissance in early modern Europe. Banks like the Medici in Florence didn't just finance merchants, they financed kings, wars, and exploration. Their decisions could shift economies and topple dynasties. With every coin they lent, they rewrote the rules of power, subtly yet profoundly. And here's the crucial point: this influence was almost always invisible. Ordinary people never saw it. They believed their lives were determined by natural limits, by luck, or by rulers' whims. Meanwhile, the real decisions, the ones that controlled scarcity, shaped wealth, and created inequality, happened quietly, behind ledger books, in private chambers, and through contracts that only a few could understand. This hidden control persists today. Modern banks, central banks, and global financial institutions are the heirs of this legacy. They manipulate liquidity, interest rates, and asset flows. They determine who can borrow, who can invest, and who succeeds. And like their predecessors, much of this power remains invisible to the masses. Because when you control money, you control reality itself. And the story of banks isn't just a story about finance, it's a story about civilization, power, and the invisible structures that shape our lives. As the world entered the age of industrialization, banks became more than record keepers. They became engines of expansion. Factories, railroads, and empires required vast amounts of capital. Ordinary people couldn't fund these projects. Only banks had the reach, the trust, and the ability to concentrate wealth. And they didn't just provide money, they dictated terms. Interest rates, loan conditions, and access to credit determined who would prosper and who would fail. Those with connections to powerful banks gained advantages invisible to the general public. Those without were left behind, often struggling to survive despite working harder than ever. Even today, these same principles apply. Modern banking is a sophisticated evolution of this ancient system. Central banks influence economies with interest rates, quantitative easing, and asset purchases. Commercial banks decide who gets loans, mortgages, and investments. The effect is subtle yet profound. Wealth continues to flow to those already holding it, while scarcity is experienced by everyone else. Consider this: the money that fuels your daily life, your paycheck, your savings, and your credit is influenced by decisions made far from your awareness. A small change in interest rates, a policy tweak, or a strategic investment by a few institutions can ripple through the global economy, affecting prices, employment, and even the stability of nations. Banks have not only financed civilization, they have quietly dictated its trajectory. Wars were funded, empires built, and industries expanded under their watchful eye. They were architects of both prosperity and crisis. And the truth is, their influence has only grown stronger over time. This isn't theory. Look around. The largest financial institutions today manage trillions of dollars, far exceeding the economies of entire nations. Their decisions shape markets, influence governments, and even impact societal structures. And yet, most people remain unaware. accepting scarcity as natural, when in reality, it's the result of centuries of concentrated financial power. Understanding this hidden history is key, because the same forces that shaped empires now shape your world, and recognizing their influence is the first step towards seeing how control, wealth, and scarcity have always been intertwined.
Section 3. The story of banks isn't just about numbers or ledgers, it's about influence over every aspect of civilization. Take the Industrial Revolution as an example. It wasn't simply innovation or labor that created wealth. Capital was required, and banks supplied it. They financed railroads that connected nations, factories that employed thousands, and trade that spanned continents. But there was a catch. They didn't give money freely. Terms, interest, and repayment dictated who could thrive and who would fail. Through this control, banks became power centers invisible to the public eye. They influenced politics, determined which ventures succeeded, and shaped the social hierarchy. The wealthy gained leverage, the powerful stayed in power, and scarcity became an effective tool to keep society structured in a way that favored those at the top. Fast forward to the modern era, central banks wield even greater authority. By adjusting interest rates, printing money, or controlling credit, they can stimulate economies or restrict them. Ordinary people rarely see these mechanisms at work, but they feel the consequences. Inflation rises, prices fluctuate, and wealth gaps widen. Banks also influence global crises. During wars, recessions, or financial collapses, they decide who receives funding, who survives, and who suffers. Money becomes more than a medium of exchange. It becomes a weapon, a tool of influence, and a mechanism of control. Consider the 2008 financial collapse. Banks were at the epicenter, yet they were also the solution. Bailouts, quantitative easing, and restructuring favored institutions over individuals. Once again, scarcity and wealth were engineered, and ordinary people bore the brunt. The lesson is clear. Banks are not passive participants in civilization, they're architects. They have quietly controlled the flow of resources, shaping societies in ways few can see. Scarcity is real for most people, but only because banks control access to the resources and capital that make abundance possible. Recognizing this hidden influence changes how you see history and the modern world. It reveals that much of what is considered natural or inevitable is, in fact, the result of carefully constructed systems designed over centuries to concentrate power. Section 4. The influence of banks is everywhere, yet almost invisible. They've quietly built systems that dictate wealth, opportunity, and even the perception of scarcity. From ancient temples storing grain to modern skyscrapers controlling trillions of dollars, banks have shaped civilizations more than kings, armies, or empires ever could. And here's the truth. Their power isn't just historical, it's ongoing. Every decision about credit, interest, or liquidity ripples across societies. Every policy shift can lift fortunes or deepen scarcity. Banks are the silent architects of the world we live in, controlling outcomes that most people assume are natural or inevitable. Understanding this isn't just knowledge, it's empowerment. When you see how control has been built, how scarcity has been engineered, you start to recognize opportunities, question assumptions, and navigate the world with clarity that most will never have. If you want to continue uncovering these hidden truths, don't miss the next video, The Invisible Power Behind Every Economic Crash. We'll reveal the forces that trigger financial disasters, why they seem sudden, and how the same systems that created wealth for the few often engineer scarcity for the many. Before you go, hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you won't miss the next episode. Remember, Power is invisible, wealth is controlled, and scarcity is engineered. The more you know, the more you can see beyond the illusion.